Harry Styles released a new album. I have some thoughts on it. Let's go. The first song is Aperture, which as a single I did enjoy quite a bit, but I did think the chorus was a bit mild. The disco beats, the production, I did like all of those. I like the song progression. And now, in the context of the album, I think I like it even more. It's actually a highlight for me. It's a pretty good intro to the album. For 5 minutes, it does pay off. It is the longest song here. And I think it introduces us to the rest of the album and what this era of Harry is going to represent for us. So that is a highlight. However, the second song, American Girls, is probably my least favorite song among the bunch here, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, the title, as it is with many songs here, it's very interesting. It draws the listener in, but when you actually get to the lyrics of the song, it's completely unimportant. It feels like Harry just named this song this name, this title, purely because his audience consists of American girls, and he just knew that this would draw the listeners in even more. But to be honest, that's not even close to the least favorite parts of this song for me. And most it just comes down to the production for me. It feels like a very nostalgic song. Maybe something that would have worked on the radio in like the 70s or 80s. But it also feels like the most barren version of that. The production isn't that interesting. The instrumental is very plain. The song for me is mostly this song to me just feels like As It Was, but for this album. Just feels like a mainstream radio hit type of song that draws the listener in just based off of nostalgia and doesn't have anything much deeper than that. All around just a complete skip for me. But but then the next song is actually for me like the real start of the album, not just the introduction. This is probably the most catchy song on this album. The chorus is great, the production is fun and colorful. There's even a point in the song where it kind of breaks down into like these Latin pop type instrumental bits. And overall, I would say this song kind of feels like something that will work on the radio or as a mainstream big hit in like 2017, maybe a little bit Despacito era coded, but it's also much better executed than most of those songs were. It's a good version of that era. I also like the ending of the song, which is like a really bubbly, bouncy piece of pop. Yeah, this song is a highlight for me, even though the influences which it borrows from are maybe not favorite era of music. But this song also represents something important for me for the rest of the album, which is that with this album, the influences are very strange. Like 2017 era pop is not a very usual era of pop to be inspired by in 2026. It feels like it was very recent and also not that memorable. That era of music is a bygone era for us for now for a good reason. It's not yet time to be infusing this era of music in your music right now. However, the good thing about this album is that it does execute upon these influences well, for the most part. The next song, the next song is a bit of a strange one for me. This song, whose title is Are You Listening Yet? Mostly feels like it wants to wake up the listener, which is a very strange thing, given that this is the fourth track in this 12-track album. It's not time to be waking up the listener yet. We haven't really heard that much from the album. And what we have heard has not been that exhilarating, so to say. And like I know and I understand that the actual lyrics of the song represent something else, and the title is a bit different from my interpretation, but still, this song just feels like that for me. The entire song just feels like it could have been a transition or an interlude. It's very ethereal, which is similar to the first song, Aperture, but it also doesn't really reach too high of a peak. It doesn't really explode at any point, which just kind of makes it pass by very quickly and doesn't stick too much in my memory, which is why it feels like this maybe could have been placed, like I said, as an interlude or a transition towards the end of the album. Very weird placement, as well as, honestly, a bit of a mishit of a song. But now the next two songs are what I would call the meat and bones of the album, the real highlights of the album. And the songs where Harry shows what this album and this era has to offer. I'm talking about, of course, Taste Back and The Waiting Game, the latter of which I like more. Taste Back is a very lush piece of pop, again, influences from the 70s or the 80s. I especially like the beginning or the opening of the song. Harry's vocal performance is interesting and catchy throughout the rest of the song. And of course, the lyrics are referring to a person who has done drugs and cocaine in the past, and Harry is kind of checking up on them to see if they've gotten their taste back. Have they gotten their ability to love and have fun with others back from this dark era of their life? Whilst also showcasing that he has some personal connection to this person and very much is interested in how they're doing. And the song The Waiting Game, which is possibly my favorite on this album, is just an even better showcasing of this same thing. 70s influence, interesting production, lush production. There's even some blippy and blitzy synths that come in on the song towards the beginning and are present throughout the whole song, which I would say are not worked in as well as they could have been, but they do add texture to the song. But to me, the seller of this song is Harry's vocal performance. He somehow manages to be alluring and timid on this song while also still maintaining the catchiness of the song. He uses certain words and pronunciations which make the song stick so much better than it would have without them. And at this point, we reached the halfway point of the album. And honestly, up until this point, the album has been quite alright. But the second half is, in my opinion, noticeably worse and does fall off. The album does fall off towards the end. We have the song Season 2 Weight Loss, which is a horrific title, and the song is just as cringy and corny. The synth work on this song is completely off, especially towards the beginning. It feels like Harry just pulled a random modular synth from a random DAW, and he didn't even attempt to mix it or tie it into the song in any way. He just kind of threw it out there. And then the rest of the song is also very poorly produced. The production is very chaotic. Nothing works with the other elements well at all. It's all just kind of jumbled together. Then also the chorus is washed out. The whole song, the concept of the song is garbage in my opinion. Very much, very much a low light for this album. However, the next song is probably the only one which I would pull from this half of the album as like an actually enjoyable song. That will be Coming Up Roses. It's a very timid flower garden ballad. It honestly kind of reminds me of Billie Eilish a bit, especially her Guitar Songs EP, and maybe some of her more recent work as well. This is one of the better influences and inspirations for a song on this album. However, here I would say Harry doesn't execute it the best. He's not the best in this style. It's not exactly his cup of tea, but the song still is pretty good. It works out well. The concept is great, and I would call it a highlight from this album. Then the next song, Pop, which I had a lot of expectations from, to be honest, by seeing certain reactions on Twitter and even before this album was released about how the song was very interesting. But yeah, it did not live up to my expectations. One of the bigger disappointments on this album. Because even though I would say the lead up of the song up to the chorus is quite alright, the synth work is not the best. The actual chorus is a bit washed out. I would say a bit similar to Season 2 Weight Loss. And the hook, in my opinion, just doesn't really stick with me. It's not as catchy as Ready, Steady, Go, even though it's a song that's trying to be in the same lane as that one. Yeah, the hook is a mess. He's just literally yelling pop, and it doesn't stick at all. The following song, Dance No More, was originally going to be a highlight for me on this album. It's very fun. The lyrics are very fun. It's a switch up in the second half. However, the more I listen to it, the more I just kind of feel like it's goofy for no reason. The chorus, which is talking about, DJs don't dance no more, should have been replaced by an actual chorus, like an actual catchy chorus that really sells the song, but instead, it's just replaced with this goofy garbage. The following two songs are completely unmemorable. Not a strong ending, as I said. Paint by Numbers is kind of trying to do a similar thing to Coming Up Roses, but instead it just kind of proves how much Harry doesn't work in this style. He doesn't sell the song at all. It's completely boring. It doesn't have any of the spice that it would have if the artist that usually do this type of song performed it. But yeah, I would put it in a similar boat as Coming Up Roses, just noticeably worse. And then Carla's song is just a complete forgettable ending. Overall, I would very much compare this album to Harry's House because it's sort of in a similar boat. They are of very similar quality, although I would say this album is a bit worse than Harry's House. This album does have a much more interesting production palette. Harry's House was a bit more bland at its core, but Harry's House has so many more clear highlights, whereas this album just kind of has a few. It doesn't really stick the landing to the end on nearly any of the songs. The influences are strange, but they are occasionally well executed. Overall, I'm feeling kind of like a strong 5 to a light 6 in this album. It's decent, it's even a bit enjoyable, I would say, but nothing to note too much for Harry's career here.